Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another brilliant Q&A session we have lined up for you on the topic of Hinduism. Today is April the 10th, and it is officially spring here in the UK. And I want to welcome you all to today's broadcast. And with this season comes the topic of weddings. Now, here in the UK, due to the coronavirus, we've had a big restriction on the amount of people and the kind of uh, wedding styles that have been allowed. So today's topic is going to explore that. Is it uh, time for a change in the way Hindus usually have their weddings? And to explore that, we have a video discussing Hindu marriage and the showing off of wealth, which Jay had done a while back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this video, which is our focus topic of the day. And after this video is finished, we will come back to speak to my colleagues, Manish Bhai, Sita Ben, Vijay Bhai, and we will have a discussion around this. In the meanwhile, if you're watching us on YouTube or you're watching us on Facebook, do feel free to say hello and give us your questions in the comments area, which I will pick up shortly and try and answer them live. So once more, let me just pass you over to the video and we will catch up after the video has been played.
Coming, let us celebrate. Nothing wrong with that, but keep it under harness. Don't let it go fly off the handle. That is what is happening. Two things that I must observe straight away. As the Hindu community is very affluent, especially the United Kingdom, is very affluent, very rich. This is the perfect opportunity for them to show off their wealth. And also there's a bit of one-upmanship. That other person's wedding, there's 7 suites. In our wedding, there should be 9 suites. So there's kind of one-upmanship. I'm better than you. So first, it's kind of showing your wealth off, showing off your wealth. It's not a good thing. It's not a spiritual thing. The second thing, one-upmanship, something better than the other one did. And I see weird examples of, the grooms coming on elephants, then one coming on helicopter, I say, getting completely out of hand. So all these things are happening. So be it. Look, we smile. Provided we know the 3 things. These are the 3 things modern Hindus should incorporate in the wedding ceremony. The first thing I must tell the couple is, look, this marriage will only last, because half the marriages crack up nowadays. This marriage will only last if the couple, the boy and the girl, learn to live for each other rather than just with each other, because then they'll crack up. When you learn to live for each other, then that marriage is solid, that will survive. And your children will have a proper setting to start their lives. That's the first thing. The second thing I must point out is this. In ancient times, marriages were a suitable kind of event where it gave opportunity for society, for families to donate, to give money, to show that, look, this is the perfect time to, in a way, show our love for greater humanity by donating money for whatever purposes. So weddings were used as a perfect opportunity for the families to donate money. Now, this is a wonderful idea. Do you think that is happening now? No. So in fact, what I'm telling the Hindu community is, look, wonderful, you are very rich, good, go and spend the money. We'll be happy to participate. Tell yourself, half the money that I've got reserved for the wedding will be given a donation, the other half used for the wedding. Then you are kind of saying, okay, I want to celebrate, I want to bring my family, friends together and have fun, good for you, but then I'm not forgetting the greater world. So a lot of people who deserve, who are needy people, let me donate the same amount of money for the needy people. The second thing. The third thing I must point out, and I'm really rough on this one, I say, look, in a patriarchal society, when a society where the father is the head of the family, in the patriarchal society, we understand why they were using the term Kanyadan, giving the daughter away. Even in the Western civilization, the bride is given away by the father.
Good afternoon, everyone. It seems like we've lost Nisidbhai, and I wonder if we are online even. I think, yeah, live streaming is on. So yes, we are online. So we'll continue without Nisidbhai. Hopefully he'll join back. So we saw a video on marriage ceremony, Jay Bhai talking about Hindu marriages, and how, one thing, it was the sowing off of wealth happens at that place. And marriage is a kind of a spiritual, ceremony. And should we be sowing off wealth during marriage? Vijay Bhai?
It's a it's a very interesting question. Just recently I was out with friends. I think, well, not in the park somewhere, and they're talking and they're saying that, oh, we must reserve £100,000 for the wedding, and it seems to be the norm to people to think like that and talk like that, and you wonder what is happening. Something has been lost here, right? And I think one key message that Jay Bhai mentioned is that, look, if it's a joyous occasion, if you don't celebrate a joyous occasion with the wider world, then it's not really a joyous occasion, I think, because you're just enjoying yourself and only for yourself and nobody else, and you close your eyes to the world. It doesn't work like that. I think generally, if you celebrate anything joyous, doesn't matter, only wedding, birthday or something, it's always good to share with the wider world. It's a good occasion. Why not share? And that was, I think, the main message of Jay Bhai. I think something else was as well, that while marriage is very important, I think there's so many rituals taking place which are kind of not valid today. And I think one of the things that Jay Bhai mentioned was the idea of Kanyadan, which takes place today. It doesn't make sense in the modern world, because when you got both partners equally financially contribute to marriage in the material sense, then it doesn't make sense. And besides, it's a spiritual bond. So really speaking, the whole idea of being skewed on one side, it doesn't kind of add up today. But yeah, there's so many things in this particular ceremony, but it is a critical ceremony, and yeah, it should be done in that particular way. And I think there is so much, people get so stressed out and so worried about the wedding because the expectations are so high today. It's surprising. Why should it be so high expectation? Yes, you can do a small, beautiful ceremony wedding and then share with whatever little you have, you share with others. So I think it's time to change, especially in the UK. I've seen some of the weddings. I think they're out of control, but that's my view. Sita?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's more about, like a spiritual occasion rather than a materialistic occasion. And we shouldn't lose sight of that. As we're saying, you're gaining a spiritual companion by, getting married. And yes, you do sort of, spend your time earning wealth and all of that as a householder, but we should never lose sight of the spiritual angle and the spiritual focus of our life. Otherwise, we're just like animals then. We're just eating and drinking and, that's it, just looking after me and my small family, and that's it. But actually, the wedding, it should be a celebration of, spirituality, living your life in the right sort of focus and sharing what you have with those around you. So not just me and my family and my community, but enjoy the wealth by spreading it to people who you don't even know. That's how you can really sort of benefit from it. My dad, it reminds me of my dad's example, which he gives about, suppose you ask a child on their birthday, will you like to have this big chocolate cake all to yourself, or would you like me to invite your friends around and you can all have a share of the chocolate cake and watch each other crunching and munching the cake? It's so much more fun to do it that way. So rather than just making it all about me and myself, make it about the wider world and developing a more spiritual focus for our lives.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. So staying with the theme of marriages, I, up to age of 17, I was in India. And their weddings used to be big occasion. You would have 400 or 500 people there, and all sort of people will be invited. And it used to be a grand occasion, but the thing was the ceremony, and everyone helped out each other. So it was like a community thing where people, neighbors even come together, and everyone was participating, helping out, and it sort of brought community together. But nowadays, what's happened is the commercialization of it, where You are just there to have a eat, drink, maybe have a party, and weddings are turning into a party kind of scenario. So should there be should we only invite the people who we know properly and who would enjoy the wedding, or should we be inviting many more people? That's one question. And should the wedding now turning into party, is that a good thing? Sitaben?
So, I mean, I think it's totally okay to have a party, please. This is your time to celebrate. This is your time to enjoy life. But also it's a time to not lose focus on, you know, living a spiritual life, essentially. So yes, please go ahead. I mean, Hinduism never says no to enjoying your wealth. So enjoy it, but then enjoy it with the wider community, enjoy it with the wider world. So this is why my dad was saying it's so important to also give half the money to charity, give it to people you don't even know. That's how you can really benefit from a spiritual life. Spirituality is about living for others, not for yourself. So if you can demonstrate that in this sort of manner, when you've been given this opportunity to sort of, you know, have a life partner, then please do, you know, spend your life in the way that you mean to, and just sort of live for other people. And that's how you can sort of really get the best out of life, essentially, rather than just materialistic living or just living for me and my small family, because you're not living fully if you live in that particular way. Vijay bhai?
I think that's quite nicely explained. Now, all I can add is that, yeah, as Manish bhai mentioned, at one time it was a more like community affair. Everybody helped out, which is kind of not the case today. I'll be honest with you. I can hardly remember the amount of weddings I've attended. I don't even know whose weddings I attended for all these years. Maybe some I can remember. Yeah, like Sita's obviously I remember, but some I just have no idea, because, you know, they invite so many people and then it's just show of wealth. The question is, do you really think that people actually, you feel, okay, you may feel good, I'm showing off my wealth. Do you think the guys, all the people who came to visit, do they really care? Think about that. And most likely only your friends really would care, genuine friends, genuine family. The rest would just come as kind of, sorry to say, but add-ons or extras, yes. So I think you have to think it through a bit. What kind of wedding do you want? And as Sita mentioned, it has to be, you must keep in mind, it's actually a spiritual ceremony, and work around that key theme and make sure you get the right people and the right amount of people. And again, do it inside, make sure that everything's done. Make sure it's spiritual, joyous occasion. And that's, I think, what we should aim for. Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Vijay bhai and Sitaben. So staying with the wedding and evolution, now Jai bhai talked about taking out this Kanyadan part of it, it being coming from a patriarchal society where girl is basically given away as a donation to the groom and the family in a way. And we've had a few viewers, you know, when we put out this video on YouTube, questioning this thing. Hey, you are actually trying to change part of Vedic ceremony, which, and this was a very much part of it. Is change is allowed in a Vedic ceremony? Vijay bhai?
Okay, first of all, I don't remember in what Vedic scripture. I've not seen the idea of giving daughter. There are ceremonies, of course. I mean, I remember distinctly in my wedding, when I was doing the wedding, I had to swear on my ancestors, swear on nature, swear on Varun Dev, swear on Agni. And by the time it was finished, I was so tired. I think the trick is so you don't do it again. Yes. So just to make sure you really put it through this gauntlet of swearing and, you know, taking blessings. But I don't recall the idea of kind of in there, to be honest. I mean, the other thing also, which I would say, which is a nice thing I see today, is that there's a lot of women priests now also conducting the ceremonies. And I've mentioned that to some people, and some people have actually told me of really severely, how dare you say it's okay for women to do ceremonies? And of course, there's some people, of course, who steeped in tradition, they will say, no, it's Kanyadan. But look, Hinduism has never been fixed. In that sense, a living religion. And we all know that we are not stuck like in the other Abrahamic, stuck on one particular book or one particular idea, stuck in the Middle Ages. We've never been that. So we've always been a living religion. So I think it's about time that we do think of how to move on and make it in modern in the sense of how it's conducted. Yeah. So yeah, Sita.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it. I mean, we have been living in a patriarchal society for hundreds of years. So this kind of becomes etched into the tradition, and this is what you're supposed to do. But like Dad says, if you think rationally and look at all the aspects of the ceremony and the meanings behind it, it makes you realize, hang on, the world has changed dramatically now. Women have a very much equal role in society. So who is to decide who is going to get given away and who isn't? So really, women should not be given away. They're not pieces of property. And I feel very happy that my dad never gave me away in that sense during the wedding. I know that he faced a lot of people saying, hey, you shouldn't do that. But I'm so happy that he didn't give me away. I feel that's a real honor. And I hope that people will sort of take on this approach and also not get given away during their wedding.
Wonderful to hear that, Sita-Ben. So, when we look at this giving the daughter away and woman being property of a man, one scene that comes to mind is the Draupadi Vastraharan scene from Mahabharata, where the question is raised by Draupadi: can a husband gamble his wife in a way? And where does that idea come from? So that is the question. Maybe I'm not phrasing the question properly, but I think Kanyadan sort of relates to that. Could you add on something on that, Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, it's true actually. I'll be honest with you, like if you look at the Manusmriti, although there's a lot of verses which praise women and the idea of feminine, but there are verses, to be honest, which says that when the daughter is young, she lives under her father, when she's married under her husband, and when she's old under her son. But look, that scripture is medieval. There's so many other law books, and now we have modern law books. So we should really think this through. That. And by the way, one thing I love about the Krishna avatar is that actually he broke rules. He was never for tradition. If you look at carefully, all the decisions he made in the Mahabharata everywhere, they don't go with the norm of idea, oh, this is how things are set. Like, in the idea of the example of the Draupadi example, you see all these Bhishma and, all these great warriors sitting there. Oh, I can't do that because it is not my dharma or what is not my state society says that if Yudhishthira says I shouldn't do anything. They're not seeing it from the Draupadi's point of view. And I think that's what Krishna came and said, what are you, all of you doing? Have you gone nuts? Have you gone, sorry, what are you doing? Have you gone crazy? Because currently something is happening which is wrong. And judge it on that basis. And I think that's the beauty about that particular idea. But yes, it's been the case we have to be honest that it has been the case that women have struggled a lot, and they've not, even now, to be honest, in the workplace everywhere, they don't have full rights. It took a long time, I don't know when, but it took a long time to get there. But the fact is, that doesn't mean that we should stick to it. We should move on and try and find new solutions to making society more equitable. Sita-Ben?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that sort of aspect in the story of the Mahabharata kind of reflects maybe that current society's attitude to women at that particular time. And we have to realize that this isn't like it's a story which reflects the current society of the time, and times have changed dramatically now. So we should just treat it as a story and not as an injunction that this is how women should be treated. It's not at all the case. And another very important thing to remember is this sort of degradation of women. It's not anything to do with the religion or the religious teachings of Hinduism. It's just an unfortunate circumstance of the society at the time. It's nothing to do with religion or spirituality, in the same way that the hereditary hierarchical caste was also a social mistake in a way. This treatment of women in this sort of in a degrading way was unfortunately happening at this kind of time, and we just have to make sure that it's not, linked with any aspect of religion or spirituality.
Wonderful answer, Sita-Ben. So a great degradation of women and all this. It's not in Hinduism, and we need to move on with the time and look at it with a fresh perspective and change ceremonies which we should look at it rationally and change as required. One question nowadays become very relevant is many marriages end up in divorces. how can we ensure a marriage is successful? How can two people who are taking this, holy ceremony, promising each other to be good partners, how can they live a life full of harmony and which would be beneficial to society? Sitaben?
So like Dad said in the video, the sort of aim of, a married life is to live for each other. So as long as you make the focus of your marriage about others, about your partner, about your children, about the wider community, then that marriage can be strong and stable. If you just sort of look at, you're in this sort of family setting, but you're only living for yourself, the family is just going to start falling apart. So it's very important that, it gives us good practice for spiritual living, because it's all about living for others. So we can really use it as an opportunity rather than thinking selfishly and just thinking about yourself. I mean, possibly a reason why divorces are sort of happening more often now, it's just my own speculation, I may be wrong or whatever, is possibly because of the sort of empowerment of women. In previous times, women were sort of financially bound to the husband and they were stuck. They were not able to go to work. But now the situation has changed dramatically and women are saying, hey, I don't need to have my husband to live a comfortable life. So possibly that could be a reason why it's happening more. And we just have to sort of look at the situation, in a sort of balanced way. But I think hopefully if people learn to live for each other rather than just living for themselves, marriages can hopefully survive. Vijay Bhai?
I think she did quite pretty well. What I would say is that attitudes need to change. I think also from the men's side that actually, because as you said, the idea of patriarchy is so deeply steeped into the mindset of the society. So I think we need to change those attitudes, and that might help. Then we can accept that actually it's okay women to be financially empowered in a marriage. Then I think the dynamics should hopefully change. But I think the key thing is also the mindset has to change. Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Sitaben, Vijay Bhai. So in the previous video, I think we talked about, say, Ramakrishna saying after one or two children, partners should look at each other as spiritual companion and avoid sex. Now, if a viewer asks the question, what if the other partner does not agree to this? So how should one, Vijay Bhai?
Look, both partners have to agree. I'll be honest with you. You can't just say it'll damage your marriage. Yeah. So think this through a bit. You both are in a journey together, spiritual journey. Look, I'll be honest with you, I've seen some cases like that, where suddenly, all of a sudden, the wife says, she starts calling husband brother, yes, and hell breaks loose. Yeah. So look, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. You have to both decide together. You can't just say, okay, I'm spiritual developed, you're behind, then sorry, bye-bye. No, you both have this progress. It's tough. I'm not saying it's easy, it's tough. But if you work together, if she doesn't live for others, yeah, if you look, he wants to do that, I should make an effort. You both make an effort, then I think eventually it'll work out. Not easy, but don't do that. Yeah, don't just say that I've decided, bye-bye, you can, my brother or sister. That's not a good good idea in my view. Chitaben?
Yeah, so I think you both have to sort of make sure there's good communication and make sure you take that step together rather than one person deciding and one person then having to follow, and it kind of causes all sorts of marital problems. It's better that you sort of make that decision together and say, look, this is the time we focus on spirituality now, and then you can make progress together.
Wonderful answer there. So there you go. It needs to work together and all party needs to agree. And also, there is, as I think Jay Bhai explained in Totapuri video, that unless the Maya play the ball, you cannot progress. So that is the Maya coming in the way, and just pray to God that things get sorted out. But, continue to work together. That is the way to proceed on that. Adityan K is asking, what do the Hindu scriptures say about the theory of evolution? Is there any connection between the Dasavatara and evolution? Sitaben?
Yeah, I think even though the avatars is basically, it's a mythological story, it does actually reflect Indian thinking of this idea of evolution, because it shows sort of, God sort of appearing on earth as, a tortoise, a fish, and coming out of the sea and then moving on to land, then becoming half man, half lion. So making that sort of transition, in a way, it does reflect this idea of evolution. And Hindus have no problem with the theory of evolution. It doesn't go against our theology in any way. And actually it fits with, I guess, the theory of reincarnation. We've all lived many lives. Possibly we don't know where we've come from. We've all sort of been through this whole process of evolution ourselves and sort of become human beings in this life. So yes, we are completely comfortable with Darwin and the theory of evolution. Vijay bhai?
I think that's quite nicely answered. All I can add is that I think one thing we remember that in Hinduism, for some reason, we've always had love for animals and love for nature. I mean, that's why we actually revere and we always do ceremonies for plants, animals. So, I mean, I'm not actually at all surprised that Hinduism actually reveres, and we have the idea of God coming in the form of Matsya, Kurma, Varaha. It's quite normal for us. I think for other people, it may be difficult for other faiths. For us, it's a norm being. And then also the other thing is that we all have souls, right? Not only human beings. All life has souls. So in effect, we're all connected in this divinity. So of course, evolution is just there. It's nothing new for us in that sense. Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. So, what an interesting discussion topic we have had today on the topic of Hinduism and marriage in today's modern sort of context. And there's lots of going to be, I'm sure, interesting pros and cons, around this topic. It could be touchy for some modern people and versus traditionalists. So let's hear both sides of the arguments online on YouTube in the comments area, on Facebook in the comments area. Let us know what your thoughts are. Now, before we go ahead with the rest of the broadcast for today, I'd just like to share one of our new initiatives that we have launched, which is a way for you, the viewers, to participate in these Q&A sessions. So a number of you had asked us, how can we submit our questions in advance so you can answer them live on air? And so we provided you a platform or a method to do this. There is a link in the YouTube comments and also in the Facebook pages where you'll be able to come to this page. Over here, there are some instructions on how you can actually submit your questions in the form of a short video, 1 minute, and you can follow the instructions over there. If you would like to know how to do that now, a simple way would be to scan this QR code with your phone camera or with your QR reader. So if you've got your phone open now, just open the camera and see if you can scan this code, and it will bring you to this page immediately. You can also watch the replay and get to this code later on. Another quick thing I want to share with you is that we have a very nice course on the basics of Hinduism. As you can see now, we have close to 6,500 people enrolled into this course. And I just wanted to show you how the course looks at the back end. So this is the course. It's laid out over a number of modules, at the end of which you will get a 101 question quiz to test you on your knowledge that you have acquired through the course. If you enjoy this course, and if you are a student who is sitting for the Cambridge board exams, we do have a separate course for that. And the exam now will take place in October, but we will be starting to work on the students participating in this course in the months of maybe June or July. So I'd like you to sign up for that course in advance, go through that course, so that when we do our live Q&A sessions for that preparation for the exams, you will be ready for it. We also have our main website. Here you will be able to access a number of resources, and if you have any technical troubles, you can get hold of me here. We also have our Hinduism PDF ebooks here available for you to download freely as well. So those are just a few of the resources I wanted to share with you, and I'm inviting you once again to submit your questions by video whenever you get a chance to do that. So I'm going to hand back to my colleagues. Manish bhai, if you can carry on with the rest of the broadcast, as I will carry on catching up with people on the chat.
Super. Thank you, Danny. Bye. So yes, please do submit your video questions. It'd be good to see you live on that as well, and good to see what questions you have. Next question we take from Kanopnisat. He's saying, please throw some light on Kumbh Mela. Is there any connection with the motion of heavenly body Jupiter and holy dip in the river Ganga during Kumbh? Vijay Bhai?
Okay. Okay. All I can say is that it's true that the orbit of Jupiter is 12 years around the sun. It takes about 12 years to make one circle. And our main Kumbh Mela takes place every 12 years. So I don't know what the connection, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what the connection is. I'm not an expert in Jyotish Shastra or Jyotishri. But yes, they do place at the same time. And I know they're linked to each other. But I think the thing is, to be honest, we are all linked to the universe one way or the other, yes. Although I don't believe in the idea of, personally, the idea of this, what do you call this, stars and whatever, looking at, your own horoscope, whatever. But the fact remains that as part of the universe, the one universal Brahman soul, we're all linked. So in one way, we're linked to everything and all the events in the universe, yes, whether we like it or not. But I don't know the exact connection. But all I can say is they have the same, both have 12-year cycles. I don't know more than that. Sorry about that. Sita?
Yeah, there's not much more I can add. I don't know too much about astrology and astrological charts and all of that, but all I can really say is that festivals such as these sort of give us an opportunity to sort of take a pause from our everyday life, think about higher things, because otherwise weeks and months and years just rush by without having, thought about spirituality and religion. So festivals like this give us a chance to think higher and think deeper.
Wonderful there. So there you go. Kumbh Mela, great occasion. For there, anyone who are near there, go there, meet some spiritual personalities, have a discussion, and a joyous occasion. A largest spiritual gathering in the world. So wonderful thing there. Akash Buddha has asked an interesting question. Was Jai Sir a Bhakt or a Dvaiti? Sita Ben?
I would probably have to say it's probably a mixture of both, actually. So obviously his devotion to Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda is undeniable. That was his inspiration, and that was, who he turned to for spiritual guidance. But then again, he was very much, in love with the idea of Advait as well. So he loved the idea of working for the greater community, doing something for people around the world. And that's why he set up this whole Hindu Academy, and that's why we're all sitting here. So I think he's a mixture of both, really, as I guess we all are to a certain extent. Vijay Bhai?
I can tell you my experience, because actually I did ask him this question once a long time back. And he goes, yes, I agree. There's the one universal ultimate reality principle. That's the Advait part. But he goes, if any Advaiti comes to you and says that, oh, I know Brahman just like that, then he's not speaking the truth. He has to go through a form. And for Jai Bhai, of course, Ramakrishna was his mentor and his inspiration. So of course he used Ramakrishna in the case of bhakti sense, that he used him to guide him as well. So yes, as Sita says, he was in a way a mixture of both. Obviously, he understood this philosophical aspect of the ultimate reality, but he practiced both. And he always told me one thing, that don't ever get too philosophical and then look down on people who practice bhakti. If you do that, then I don't want you to be with me. So you see, he actually loves bhakti as well. So both in that sense. Yes, it's very clear to me in that sense. Don't ever get too high on Advait, and then feel, don't do that. So there you go. Anyway.
That is wonderful to hear about Jai Bhai. And just want to add that he was like a karma yogi as well. He was working so hard for this cause, and we've seen how hard he worked. And, he was driving all the way to Birmingham and all these places up north, hours of driving, and so much work he put in. It's so wonderful to see. So it's good to hear about Jai Bhai there. Next question we take from Prasananand Jha. He's saying, if the only way to be Sthit Prajna, man with steady wisdom, is having no desire whatsoever, doesn't the desire of being a Sthit Prajna conflict with the idea itself?
Yeah, so I mean, that's actually something that I struggle a lot with personally. It's very difficult to sort of have a steady mind while you're dealing with all the sort of challenges of life, and it's very difficult to be desireless. So I think that's why within Hinduism we have this structure of living our life through the ashram system. So it gives you a chance to sort of not bottle up your desires, but live through them, but then understand them for what they are, understand their limitations, and move on. So I think hopefully this idea of Sthita Prajna, being steadfast, is it's that maturity to say, I've had my desires, I've lived through them, I know that there's a limit to them, they're not the ultimate source of happiness. Now I can sort of focus on spiritual living in the sense that I'm not sort of caught up by desires, I understand them for what they are, and sort of just dealing with the challenges of life in a strong and stable way. Vijay Bhai?
I think all I can add is that when you achieve the state of Sthita Prajna, then I think the idea of desire doesn't even come into play. So there you go. That's it, I think.
Wonderful. So I think Jay Bhai was asked this question once, and he's saying is, is more likely that you become Sthita Prajna after the experience, spiritual experience, than before actually. So it's kind of two goes hand in hand in a way. So there, I think that was the answer. But that video will be available on YouTube if you want to check it, Prasananand. Next question we take from Shomik Chandra Mitra. No, it's not a question. It's just saying it's been wonderful to see Jay Bhai's work. He's been seeing for the last 6 years, which is good. Thank you for your comment. Great to hear about it. Next question from Sivanshu Maharaj. He's saying, what's the significance of the non-religious stories like Panchtantra and Vikram and Betal in our scriptures? They are no scriptures, these are stories. Let's not intermingle too. But is there any significance, anything to learn from them, Vijay Bhai?
There's a lot to learn from them. I must say that I have gone through all those stories, the Panchtantra, Panchratna. Even I've also gone through the stories of the Jatak tales of the Buddhists. And I brought up my children on all those stories. They may not be linked to directly religious scriptures, but the moral code and the kind of ideas they give you on how to think, how to be rational, they're absolutely amazing. Yes, I know. I think the Panchtantra, if I'm not wrong, by an author called Vishnu Sharma, and he had a challenge that I think King actually came to him and said, "My children and my sons are all totally useless. They don't think straight. They can't make rational decisions." So I think he actually made a lot of stories to help. And we are all the beneficial inheritors. Look, this is the beauty about Hinduism. We are the inheritors of all these fantastic stories. And we should make every effort to preserve them and propagate them. I think in India, I was surprised when I went to even my village. I said, how many have heard them? Oh, we've read some of them, in Amachitra Kathas. But this is not, it's almost like we still have to get away from our passive colonial mindset and really move to truly being Indian and realize that we have a huge rich heritage backing us, all kind of heritage, yeah. And we need to use that to actually forge our own path in the future. Yeah, Sita Ben.
Oh yeah, there's not really much more I can add. I mean, they're not necessarily spiritual stories or anything, but they give really vital life lessons. They show us how to think critically, how to handle certain challenges in life, how to think in the right sort of way and do the right thing. So I think they are invaluable in that sense.
Wonderful there, answer there, Vijay Bhai. Next question from Charmaine, our usual viewer. She's saying, wouldn't it be more beneficial for a couple to have a premarital spiritual counseling education to have a more successful marriage on all levels? I think you can add in that regarding that spiritual, progress that we were talking about with Ramakrishna saying after 1 or 2 children progressing spiritually, you could have that in that as well. Is that a good idea, Sita Ben?
I don't see any reason why not to, really. It sounds like a good idea. In a way, it gives you a sort of platform to sort of discuss openly, how you plan to lead your life, what's important to you and what isn't so important to you. And you can sort of try and align them with each other. So remember, the whole process of marriage is to learn to live for each other. So you can sort of discuss where you are coming from, where your partner is coming from, and try and find ways to live a life that fulfills all of your requirements. But then ultimately focus on the more important things rather than the materialistic things. Vijay bhai?
I think, Shaman, this is a brilliant idea, because I know that at least when my mother got married, or my grandfather, I know they were just paired up with the parents, and they just had to make do and struggle through life. But I think times have changed. I think this is a very good idea. Perhaps something that I think Indian communities should adopt. And before people get married, get them together and discuss what marriage is about. Because obviously, when you get thrown a deep end, there's a struggle. And I've noticed one thing, talking to many couples, the first 5 years can be a struggle, and then things kind of come into an equilibrium. But of course, if we had this kind of discussion, then I think maybe instead of 5 would be 1 or 2 years. I don't know, but I think it's a good idea. Yeah. So yeah, agree.
Wonderful answer, Ed. So there you go. I know a friend who's been looking for a partner, and he wanted somebody spiritually minded and has struggled. So, but there may be other issues there. So we'll take the next question. He's saying, sure. Okay, let's take Kishan Thakkar question. Can you recommend any good English translation for Mahabharata or Ramayana? Vijay bhai, do you know any good translation?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many on the internet. Yes. All I can say is that to try and get a translation only, because sometimes you get translation with the bhashya, then you have to be careful which bhashya you're looking at, because the bhashyas can vary from a society to society. I mean, from a sectarian movement to a sectarian movement. So there are very many good ones. I'm not sure if you can recommend any specific one. I wouldn't say. I'm not sure of that at the moment. Yeah. Sita Ben?
Yeah, there's not much I can really add. I mean, yeah, as you say, try and get one that isn't so sort of partial to any particular point of view or whatever. But yeah, I think, just decide on the one that's best, really.
Wonderful. So, viewers, we have now come to the time where we're going to be answering one of the questions that a viewer has submitted by video. And so let me just share the screen and we can get to hear from this viewer.
Hello, my name is Karan Mungra. I am from Jamnagar, Gujarat, and my question is that that our brain can only perceive what we can experience around us. It can't perceive what is beyond this material world, and Brahman is totally an experiential thing. So my thing is that shouldn't we more worry about this materialistic world or this world around, because that's the only thing our brain can understand. We can't understand Brahman in its entirety, nor we can understand it is this bit also, because it is purely beyond this world. So shouldn't we care more about this material world?
So the question was this, and we've explored this in a number of ways before, that, when we look at, for example, how to express ourselves when we are trying to describe the concept of God. It is something that's so huge that we sometimes struggle, and words alone cannot describe that concept in an appropriate manner. So his question is, why don't we just chuck that and focus on what we can describe? This is the experiential sort of the world around us. So over to the team again to answer this question from Karan. Vijay bhai, you muted.
Sorry, I can start. Yeah. So it's a very good question, a very, very good question. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. You'd be surprised that actually the Charvak movement, one of the Gnostic schools of India, had the same idea, because we cannot perceive something beyond what we experience with our senses and our mind, how the mind interprets what we feel from the senses. So why bother with something else? Actually, Charvak went even one step further. He said that the idea of the spirit is inherent in matter. So the idea when you talk about something consciousness is not something separate. It's actually built into matter. That's how far he went. But look, the truth is, I mean, again, I'll give you Jay Bai's answer because he's explained this many times. The fact is that what we have, the best tools we have is the senses and our mind, right? And we can say that from all the other history of our Indian rishis, they have used those same tools, which are actually part of Prakriti, matter, not the Brahman, but those same tools can be used to achieve the idea of Brahman, and then we can discard it. So yes, we have that limit, But that's the best we have in our hands, and we should use that for our kind of progress, spiritual progress. And it's just a question because it's other thing is also in the Greek idea, the idea of Plato and Aristotle. They were saying the same thing. The mind is that's it. We have mind. There's nothing we transcend the mind. But Hinduism has always had a problem with the idea of the mind or intellect, because intellect and mind are bound by time, so they cannot ultimately be linked to Brahman. But we can use them as tools to work out what Brahman is, and then when you achieve moksha, discard them. And the thing is, it's true. I haven't done that, so I can't say. But we know of living examples, Ramakrishna Paramhans, Raman Maharishi, who have actually achieved that, and that is kind of our proof that actually this can be done. But yeah, very valid question. It's very unique to the Indic faiths. I won't say only Hinduism, but also Buddhism, Jainism. It's a very unique idea to Indic faith, where we use the Prakriti tools to achieve there is something beyond Prakriti and the Purusha. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's just my personal sort of interpretation of that is, you can live your life, the material world, but then you're going to keep coming up against problems. Life is never sort of satisfactory. There's always going to be ups and downs. So then, rather than just dealing with the matter that you can see and dealing with problems and all of that, it's so valuable to have that in the background, this spiritual inheritance that we have. Just having that in the background can make your life so much easier to live. It makes all the hardships so much easier. And sort of relying on, all the great spiritual giants that we have in our heritage, in our tradition, going back to them can give a great deal of solace and comfort. And it makes you think, surely there is more to life than meets the eye. So, we're dealing with all of life's problems in a materialistic way. You can actually face them better, I think, through having a more spiritual outlook on everyday life.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben. Take the
Brilliant.
next question.
I have one quick question. So the question is basically this: why is it that we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we are so quick to judge others by their actions? That's it.
Vijay Bhai?
I think the thing is, Nisima, we can't really say that with the intentions. We can only see the actions, I guess. But I think one thing to remember is that in Hinduism, actually, even I think all the Indic faiths, sometimes in the idea of karma, the idea of the good karma, sometimes the intention is far more important than the action. I'll tell you why. Because when you do the action, you cannot guarantee the results you want, right? You may do some action in good faith, but sometimes the consequence can be you can see something else happens. So in that sense, the intention is okay to judge yourself intention, because look, we all struggling. We are inbuilt with, as Krishna says, with the impulses of nature, the three gunas, and they will drive us to do things. So every time we say, okay, like I have an intention of finishing a spiritual book on the 6 darshans again, and I've been saying that to myself for the last 3 months, and I've only done about 10 pages. So hopefully I'll pick it. But sometimes the intent is good, because ultimately that actually you'll work towards it. I know it's a struggle in the mind, and if you, I have to get motivation. But to have that struggle and motivation, challenge yourself and motivation is a good thing. And let's face it, we all face that. We want to achieve a lot of things, and we get later. But to try and struggle in the mind, say, look, my intention is to get this done, that done. And that's a good way to judge yourself, what your intent is. Because if you judge everybody by actions, or he's done that, it's not easy as it looks. Okay, I'll get this done, and it gets done. I get this. It doesn't work like that. But to have good intent and say, look, I really want to achieve this, and I'll try my best. You may struggle, you may not even achieve it, but the intent is very good, and I think it's a good thing to have. Don't put people down just because they have judging for the intention. That's not a bad thing in my view. Yeah, Sita.
Yeah, I think just the way human nature is, I think it's so much easier to criticize other people than it is to criticize ourselves. And it reminds me of the teachings of Sharada Devi. She says, do not look at the faults of others, look at your own faults first. So it's all a matter of self-improvement and not sort of pointing fingers at anybody, because who are we to sort of decide on what's right and wrong, which the other person has done? We don't know their intentions, as Vijay Bhai was saying. So they may have very good intentions and it just doesn't turn out the way you expect it to. So it's very important to focus on your own sort of spiritual progress, on your own faults, and develop yourself. Then you can sort of see the beauty in everyone else.
That's so wonderful to hear. Nisit Bhai, do you want to ask another question?
No, please carry on. We've got maybe around 5-10 minutes to go.
Sure. We'll take question from Yash Soni. He's asked interesting question. Why should we follow Sanatan Dharma and not Abrahamic religions? Sitaben?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that we do. We never say don't follow Abrahamic religions. If that's the path that's suited to you, then please do go for it. And there's nothing to say that they're wrong or they don't work. We've actually got a spiritual giant within the Indian tradition, which is Sri Ramakrishna, who actually practiced and was successful in the Abrahamic religions. He was able to become enlightened through those particular pathways, so they do work. And you just have to sort of focus on the religious tradition that suits your temperament and your background and where you come from. So if it's the Indian traditions, please, by all means, go ahead and make spiritual progress in that way. But it doesn't mean that any other religions are wrong at all. Everyone is progressing from their own particular point of view, and we shouldn't sort of impose our points of view on anybody else. Let everyone progress the way they are supposed to. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, all I can add is that one thing, as Sita mentioned, look, there's a very big difference between Christ and the church, in my view. Because I think the problem comes when you put everybody in a collective and say, okay, this is how you're going to lead your life, this is how you're going to do things, and you must follow X, Y, Z rules. I think that's one thing that a lot of people who for Sanatana Dharma have a problem with. I think one thing to keep very clear, although we have sectarian movements, by and large, Sanatana Dharma is quite individualistic, where you you follow your own path and your own goal. It's a struggle. Of course, some people say Abrahamic faith is very easy, simple and clear cut. Here's the book, do as you're told, sorted. Yes, you go to hell, you just go to Jannah or heaven. But Hinduism is a bit different in that sense. I mean, we don't do that we don't compartmentalize people in that sense. Many years ago when I was young, I talked to my father's guru. He's now passed away. And he told me the same thing, that look, find your own path. And that felt really good. Then I could tell my mother and my father, look, he's told me to find my own path. So don't keep on hassling me to go this temple, that temple, So kind of usually as ammo. But the point is this, that in Sanatana Dharma, the freedom that it gives you to progress spiritually, it's kind of, it's very, very empowering in one sense. A struggle in one sense, also very empowering in one sense. I think as I said, problem comes when you, I'll be honest, even some Hindu movements, modern Hindu movements, I can't give names, they've done the same. They actually package religion, like a deity packaging, and they sell you, kind of force feed you that. And that's where the problem arises. I think by and large, that's the maybe issue we have with Abrahamic faith, that they're exclusive, they refuse to accept other kind of great leaders, and they kind of Christ never said that. It's something that the church has done, yes. And I've had this problem before, because I've had people coming to my door to idea of preaching Christianity, sharing the Christian faith, so to say. And I asked them, look, I love Christ, but also love the Buddha. And they go, yeah, that's good too, but it's not the same. And I go, no, it's the same, right? And therein lies the problem, because Hinduism is so magnanimous and so vast, and we accept that the great personalities all around the world, and humans are by nature godly. And I think that's kind of differences we have. I'll stop here. There's so much to talk about on this topic. Manish Bhai.
That's a great answer there, Vijay Bhai. Yes, that clearly, gives a Hindu perspective on this topic, which is a very valid point. Asa Satpati is asked an interesting question. She's saying, I heard from Mr. Jai that karma catches up on us even when we keep quiet on things we supposed to do something about. And she's saying, I'm seeing poverty every day in ads or paper, etc. If I keep quiet, do I pay price? How much is enough? How much should I do? Sitaben?
Do as much as you can, really, as much as you're able to. Please do go out and do it. This is your chance to, once you see a problem, you must face it and to try and do something about it, however little it is. Suppose, it could be like donating £2 a month to a particular charity, then just go and do that. If that's all you can manage, then do that. Just do something to try and address the problem. It's a huge problem. It's an enormous problem. But once you've sort of seen it, you must try and do something, however small it is. And if everyone thought that way, then hopefully these kinds of issues would sort of reduce and the world would be a better place. Vijay bhai?
Yeah, I think Jay Bhai is very correct. Doing nothing is not an option. And I don't have to say it. The Gita mentions it so many times. Yeah, that you cannot say doing nothing. Even Lord Krishna himself, I think in chapter 3 says that even I do work and I'm the supreme Lord of the universe. Yes. So if you see poverty and don't do anything about it, I think sometimes you get desensitized because she's all the time on TV. But it's always important to remember that don't get desensitized. It is a problem and always be aware of it. I know some people get I know especially young children like my daughter, she really gets into this idea and it really gets her wound up. Why is this like that? Why is God doing that? It may sound like a very agitating, but anyhow, don't forget that actually it's there. Don't get desensitized. That's very important. And then Sita mentioned, obviously give as much as you can. Yeah. Manish bhai.
Fabulous. So I think that brings us to the point where we are about ready to wrap up today's broadcast. So once again, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's participated so wonderfully, both on Facebook. We have many regular viewers joining us every week. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your questions and your feedback. Same on YouTube as well. Now, before I close, I'd just like to remind you all once again that we have this video page available for you to submit your questions. The link is in the chat and there is the QR code. You can scan it. I'll leave it on screen for just another 1 or 2 more seconds. And I want to end the broadcast by using a quote from Swami Vivekananda. And the quote is this: "If I love myself despite my infinite faults, how can I hate anybody at the glimpse of a few of their own faults?" And with that, I'd like to wish you all a positive and a wonderful week ahead. And I'd like to just bring on my team and say goodbye. And we will see you next Saturday, 2 o'clock UK time as well.